Hey guys, so this is part 2 of the floor support replacement. Did a little more cleanup on the parent metal, the frame rail and the cross member, and just getting ready to install the floor support. So you can see it's nice and clean. I'm going to talk about a modification I plan on doing. I'm just checking it out right now. So as you can see, I got the floor support slid into place, and then in between the frame rail is a piece of 2-inch, 1/8-inch thick square tubing. So I plan on running that pretty far into the frame rail, and then we'll do some plug welding on the outside into it, and then run that into all the way through into the subframe connector, and then tie all that together. So it kind of makes the frame rail, the front of the frame, go all the way to the back of the car. So it just helps strengthen everything. And then with that, I'm also putting in the convertible inner rockers, just to help keep this thing from twisting or bending under all the power I plan to have. So, you know, while I'm at it, when in here, it's not a hard modification to do, and I think it should help. So, get you a view from underneath. There's the new floor support, and what I'm getting ready to do now is to do some measuring to make sure that I'm meeting the Ford service manual measurements, and this is the hole I'm going for here. And I'm going to start off with this hole here, and see if I can't get that 42.5-inch measurement. Now, I've got my tram gauge set up. Stay there, buddy. Okay. So I got my tram gauge set up, and what I did is set it to 1 inch on the tape measure, and then just added an inch. So 42.5 plus an inch is 43.5. As you can see, I got it right there, and it's all locked in. So now this is one of the killer tools tram gauges, and they're nice, except, you know, they don't give you any like wider cones to use on the tips. So what I did is I ordered a couple of Bosch's centering cones for their routers, and then I took the aluminum insert that they have that comes with it, and then just drilled some holes in it on my drill press. And then that allowed me to just cap that on there, and now I've got a cone. So if anybody has any questions on how to do that, feel free to ask, and I'm gonna go measure it, see how it goes. All right, so getting the floor support installed, doing some measuring, no problem getting this measurement, 42.5 from here to here. So that's where she's sitting right now. For point B, I am having an issue. I can't replicate 29 7/8. That's because of the cross member. So on the cross member, there's 2 little flat tabs on both sides of it going this way. And when you butt the floor support up against it and make it nice and flush on both tabs, that sets the distance between these two. If I were to twist this floor support like this, it would throw this off up here quite a bit in order to get this number. So I set it where it's at, nice up and flushed against the cross member, and measured, and I got 30 1/8, which might be an error on their part or an error within the new parts. But again, my biggest concern is getting this measurement and to move forward to make sure I get this measurement correct, amongst other things. So here, I'll show you what I'm looking at as far as the cross member. So you can see down in there, there's those 2 flat pieces going up against the floor support, and they're sitting flush against it right now. So the car's never been wrecked. That cross member is good, so I'm not going to be too worried about that. I'm also going to confirm on my buddy's fastback the measurement on his floor supports between these 2 points, just to see what he's got. And you know, these cars weren't built perfect. I'm gonna get as exact as possible with this, but I'm not too worried about that. All right, so confirming that my cross member for the transmission has dropped a little, and it did. You know, not by much, but you know, I'm going to be as exact as possible. So what I'm doing is I've got my digital level set, and I've got a scissor jack underneath the cross member and the floor support. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just raise that up until that reads 0, just to make sure I can get it. And then once I do that, and a couple other things I'm just confirming right now, this is where I'll weld it in place. So just figuring out my setup. So what we'll do here is we'll slowly turn this, as you see. I think that's good enough. You know, this side got replaced, so it could be off just a little bit. That might come down a hair. We'll see. But you know, before I finish weld everything, I'm always going to tack this in place, and that will help me get me where I need to be. So far, so good. All right. All right. So I'm working on getting my cross member to the correct height above the baseline per the Ford service manual. So what I did is I hopped on SolidWorks, and I took the measurements, and I measured everything out and put points where they're supposed to be. So here's the baseline. This is what the laser level's set to, and then here's the driver's side frame rail. And so I got my 2 bumper bracket holes, and then the lower gearbox hole for the steering gearbox. All set to the correct height above the baseline per the Ford service manual. So I figured, since you know I'm starting with the floor supports, and the cross member for the transmission connects to the floor supports, I figured I should figure out what the height is above the baseline for the floor support is. So what I did is, and I'll show this when I go back down in the garage, I took a piece of 1-inch square tubing. It's about 4 feet long, and I butted it up against the bottom of the frame rail without the floor support on it, and then a floor jack, and picked it up, and I kind of pressed it and squared it up, and then it came out here underneath, and then I measured down to it and got 5 5/8 inches. I got that here, and then I got it down here. So I figured that I could just offset this line, the bottom 5 5/8 of an inch down, and then shoot that across here, and that would give me the bottom. This dash line is the bottom of the frame rail. And then I measured the thickness of the floor support and got 0.079 inches, and then I offset that down, and then I took a measurement. So here's the floor support. I took a measurement from here down to here, placed it, I got 5.76 inches. And then I'll make that a little bit bigger for you. There you go. It's rounding, but it's 5.736. So I'm going to go downstairs and set the driver's side floor support to that height with the cross member attached to it, and have a look and see what it does to the cross member. All right, so as I said, I'd show you how I got that 5 5/8 measurement. So there's your 1-inch square tubing, and then underneath the jack, it's pressed up against the actual frame rail itself. And then what I did is I came up front here, and measured 5 5/8, and then I check here as well, down to here, and I get the same thing. So that's a good number to go off of, and that's how I was able to get to the bottom of the frame rail, and then do the thickness of the force support, and then the total height above the baseline set by the laser level. And that's how I'm gonna get the crossmember height. Okay, so my transmission crossmember height, I figured it out. As I showed you upstairs, it was 5.736 inches from the bottom of the floor support down to the baseline or laser level line. And right now my laser level is casting its line. I did upgrade it to a flat line instead of a dot. My other one broke, so this one's been great, and you could test it to make sure that it's level and calibrated, so that's good. So right here where my thumb is, there's a line, you can just see it. So I'll put it right up where the crossmember connects. As you see, it's right on the line. So this side's good. Actually, it could come up just a hair. The other side's down by 1/8 of an inch. So when I put the force support on that side, I'll have to pick it up. And then, as you can see in there, I've got a little level, and that gets me relatively close. I did test it, jack it up with the force support on. I got the laser right on the line, and it definitely lifted it up. So when I took that force support out, that side, the driver's side, definitely dropped a little bit. So this will definitely help me get to be a little more exact when I go to weld these on. So coming over here, did do the weld through primer. Nice and gray. Here's that bracket. That'll get put on later. So I gotta flip it and do it on the other side, give it about an hour to dry, and then it should be ready. All right, so I'm prepping the floor supports at this time, and I'm using the 1967 Mustang Weld Sealant Assembly Manual. So right here is the frame rail and floor support, and as you can see, the X's, there's 10 on each side, so there's 3 sides, so there's going to be 30 welds. And then I've got the brake bracket that'll be welding on the inside of the driver's side. That's got 4 welds. That one's a little mangled, but I'll clean it up as I weld it on, so probably more than that, no big deal. And that'll get welded on after I weld the frame rail to the floor support. And then right here's the cross member, and then it's got the 4 X's there, so I've got that prepped and ready to go. And then it has down below here, that's the bottom side of the cross member, and that'll get welded on when it's time. And then I'll show you where I'm at over here. It's getting ready to weld through primer, and then I won't use weld through primer on everything, just where the welds are at, and then I got a regular just primer that I'll use inside here, since I'm not going to do any welding inside there. Actually, you know what? I am going to do some welding inside there. I'm going to put that 2-inch square tubing all the way down it. So, and then I'll also have, coming in this area is where the sub-brim connector is going to be. So I'm just going to weld through primer the entire thing. Up along through here. And this is the brake bracket. That'll go roughly right here. It's 8.5 inches from here. So that'll go roughly there, but you can see I can't put it on until after I weld it on the frame rail, but that'll be where it goes. So I'm just gonna go ahead and paint this now and get it ready. This is the stuff I'm using for weld through. Have not used it yet, got good reviews on Amazon. So, all right, I'll do it up. And they're both out. So making headway. The passenger side came out a lot easier than the driver's side. I had to do less gouging to get it out. I'm actually getting better at it. So instead of an hour and a half, it only took me roughly 30 minutes and it was out. So definitely getting better at that. As you can see, both are out. It's kind of funky. I don't get to see this view of a car too often. So took my angle grinder. I got one of these flapper discs from Home Depot. They're about 10 bucks. And tell you what, I had one on my an old one on here, and it was definitely worn down. So the new one was a lot faster. Cleaned up the rail pretty nice. You can see, got a little bit of repair to do on it, nothing much. One thing I did do, show you on the other side. is making sure things are square. I took my right angle here, got it up in here, put it up against the face of the cross member, and then the bottom of the cross member, so where it attaches underneath the floor support, and made sure that those are at a right angle, just so everything's nice and tight where it's supposed to be. And the floor supports will actually slide in from the back all the way up to where they need to be, and then I'll use my tram gauge to locate them per the Ford service manual. So I'm getting ready to prep the the passenger side floor support, get it painted. It'll look just like this, all the holes. There's the new one there. And then an issue I'm running into, and I'm gonna have to figure it out later. I can still get the floor supports in and worry about this when the time comes. But as you see on the Ford service manual, this measurement here from the hole in the floor support to the front, what appears to be the very tip right here of the frame rail. So when I go to the frame rail, I believe this is what they're talking about. But my issue is if I take my sliding caliper and I do a depth check between this point here to here, I get 0.9 inches roughly. Well, if I do that over here, if you can see, same spot to here, I get 0.7 inches. So one shorter than the other in total length. So I don't know which measurement to use on the manual, in the Ford service manual, to get that point. There's a guy online that did a 67 fastback project where he did a diagonal from here to there's an elongated hole up here, and he got 70 inches. So I might see about replicating that, and then also checking my buddy's 68 fastback to see what his are at. So yeah, I can't go off that, unfortunately. So just another dilemma amongst many more I'll probably run into. So, but I'm having fun, and I'm gonna go ahead and get prepping on this floor support. And there you have it. Both floor supports are prepped and ready to go. I did goof up. I forgot to drill the 2 holes underneath here for the cross member. You can see them on that one from the inside. No big deal. I'll be able to get those in. No problem. So maybe a little extra weld through primer afterwards. But okay, so wanted to show you. So the issue with the cross member being kind of twisted. Before I took off the passenger side subframe floor support, it didn't really want to move a whole lot, but you were able to see that it did. But now when it's, obviously there's a lot less support. If I grab hold down here, I mean, you can really see that moving. It looks like there's a twist in the floor from the original floor to the additional new floor that was put in. So no big deal. As I showed with SolidWorks, I got the measurement from underneath the floor support as it's connected to the cross member down to the laser line. So I'll be able to set both those sides equally, which is awesome. And then I should be relatively level down where the transmission mounts. Other than that, I'm still working on trying to figure out what's going on with the frame rails. I may end up removing the entire front of the car. 2 reasons. One, it'll be a lot easier to work with and get cleaned up without having to bend over or try to hop inside the engine bay. And 2, it'll be a lot easier to work in here and get all this cleaned up and ready to go for the fastback conversion. So the good news is, really all I need to do is get those floor supports where they're supposed to be, which isn't too difficult, and get that cross member correct, and get those welded together, and then get the haggard looking firewall put in. But as I said, I'll clean all that up, at least attempt to. If I can't, then I'll just curse myself and purchase another one. Maybe when CJ Ponies is having a deal. But yeah, anyway, if I get that the firewall in place as well, then we're pretty much set and ready to do the fastback conversion. So, because the frame rails at that point can just, you know, if you use your imagination, the floor support comes off underneath and goes towards the back of the car, and then the firewall goes up that looks like to be a 45-degree angle there. So, you know, when those two come together, then it kind of creates a little nook for the frame rail to sit into. So it'll at least be a start. And the width between the two will be correct, and then you know, obviously the height will be correct per the Ford service manual and the jig that I built. So, and you know, as I said before, with that 1-inch square tube, and you know, I can always press it up there again and get that 5 5/8 inch spacing up here at the front, which will really help with the height, which combined with the height on this guy and the laser level, I think we're gonna be pretty good. So, making headway. So that's gonna be it for this episode. And then the next episode we'll have the floor supports installed and working with the firewall.